Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today I'm asking the question, are we app crazy? Are we using too many apps? Do we have too many apps in our lives? Now, a lot of people love to try out a million different kinds of apps and then pretty much abandon them when, they don't want to use them anymore. Trial and error, that kind of thing. Now, I think that's in some ways perfectly fine, but the numbers are in, and that is kind of a bit an issue here. And I want to talk about this because if I'm looking at the numbers here, and these are from DataVisor, they specialize in fraud detection, 65% of accounts that experience an account takeover attack, and I'll explain that in a minute, is basically they have not been accessed. The apps that have not been accessed, these accounts that have not been accessed, they haven't been accessed for more than 90 days, meaning these are dead apps or dormant apps in our life, but people are taking them over. Now, typically the way an account takeover works is simply this. A hacker will go and look through basically a whole bunch of usernames and passwords that have been dumped into the dark web and then start trying them in various ways. So if I find your username and password, I'm going to try it on various banks, Facebook, Google, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm also going to try a whole bunch of other things like apps, maybe that is potentially tied to a credit card, or let's say it's an app that I enjoy. So maybe I'm trying to find dormant apps so I can log in, transfer the in-game currency, whatever that is. But if we are looking at 2/3 of all account takeover attacks being from apps that we haven't used in 90 days or more, I think that's pretty telling. And I think that's pretty telling about how we are using apps and discarding apps at will, and also what we're doing about data security. Now, one of the things that a lot of cybersecurity people will tell you is that if you have an account, give it a random password. Don't use the password for the same thing. I like to tell my audiences when I'm on stage that if your password is for Facebook is the same as your bank, you have a serious problem and you're doing it wrong. But I thought those numbers were actually really staggering in terms of how we are just accessing data all of the time. I have literally seen on phones over 100 plus apps in use. Oftentimes they're conflicting to each other, and people are wondering why their cellular bills get so high. It's because all these apps are phoning home, updating, heart beating, all this kind of stuff. And so I think it really behooves us to vet these things. And if we are going to be using apps and abandoning apps, it probably makes sense that we go ahead and change passwords or just make everything unique out of the gate, because if you're ever hit and exposed, you are narrowing that surface area for attack. And the thing is that many of us are not even going to know that these apps have been hit, primarily because we don't use them anymore. And if a hacker is able to get in and, let's say, change an email address or a password to whatever they want it to be, then we will never know these things are taken over until, let's say, a year later, we decide to try to get into the app and do something with it. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I think that we really do have to ask that question. Is there a limit on the amount of apps that we can have? Is there a limit of the apps we should be using on a regular basis? And when we are abandoning apps, should there be a process that we put in place? Or should there be a process that's integrated into things like Android and iPhone that basically say, hey, you haven't used this app in X amount of days. Do you want to change the password and abandon it? Something along those lines. Maybe we need some kind of policy, written into the phones. Then again, I think a lot of cybersecurity, the impetus is on us. So that is your news of the day. I thought that was absolutely fascinating, and I hope you did too. And as always, I'm always interested in hearing what you guys have to say about it. So that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.